Hi, I'm Ablin and I'm an intern with Lexis and Company for the month of July, and today I'll be discussing Article 20 of the Indian Constitution, which provides for protection in respect of conviction for offences. So, under Article 20 of Constitution of India, uh, has it has Article 20 has taken care of the safeguards which are to be given to the accused of the crime. So what I'm trying to say here is that the Constitution of India has taken care of safeguards of the right of the person accused of the crime. So this article cannot be suspended during emergency under Article 359. And further, this particular law is Article 20 is only applicable to criminal cases, only applicable in case of criminal law. Further, if we talk about Article 20, it is further divided into three clauses. First clause deals with ex post facto laws. Second clause deals with double jeopardy, whereas the third one deals with protection against self-incrimination. So if we talk about ex post facto law, ex post facto laws, under ex post facto law, it is held that a person, accused, cannot be tried for an offense which was not an offense at the time of the commission of the crime. So if any act has been made punishable after the commission has been done by the person, then the person won't be retrospectively made liable or punished for that particular offense. Further, we can divide ex post facto laws into three parts. So the first one is which declares an act or omission an offense for the first time. Second is penalty enhanced, for example in rape clause. And the third one is different procedure for prosecution of an offense, that is amendment in CRPCs. So the first two categories, that is the penalty enhanced and the act or the omission which was declared as an offense for the first time, have been covered under Article 20 clause 1. So penalty greater can't be given, but if it is lessened, accused can claim it. So what, for example, Probation of Offenders Act was made after, suppose a Probation of Offender Act was passed after the commission of an offence by the accused. So in this case, accused, since that Probation for Offenders Act is a beneficial legislation for accused, hence he can claim it retrospectively. And then we have there was a various controversy regarding Article 20 clause 1. It was challenged in Sanla Mughal versus Union of India regarding bigamous marriages by Muslims. So it was held that all were punishable and must review again. So all the marriages which have been solemnized before the making of the act which made bigamous marriage punishable, so they must be seen. So it was clarified in Lily Thomas versus Union of India by Supreme Court that it is not hit by Article 20 clause 1, as Supreme Court is not creating a new law, only interpreting an old one. Further, in Ratanlal versus State of Punjab, it was Article 20 clause 1 was held to be a beneficiary legislation, as it was held that during act of the accused, no Probation of Offenders Act was there. So the same example I've given earlier, that during the commission of an offence by the accused, no Probation of Offender Act was there, but later on it was there. The Supreme Court said that any law that is beneficial to the accused is not hit by Article 20 clause 1, that is it can be applied retrospectively. Further, further we'll be discussing about procedural change. So any procedural enactment after the commission of the offence is not hit by Article 20 clause 1. So that means any procedure which was made after the commission of the offence, it is not hit by Article 20 and it can be therefore applied retrospectively. So and now moving forward to civil liability. Since the word offence has been used under Article 20 clause 1, therefore The ex post facto laws are only concerned with criminal law, so criminal laws, and therefore there is no bar of retrospective effect of a civil liability, and there is no bar even on the compensation, that is compensation can be made payable retrospectively. Now moving forward to Article 20 Clause 2, which deals with double jeopardy. The concept of double jeopardy has been based on three maxims. So one of the maxim is nemo det bis vexeri, which means a man should not be put to a trial for the same offence. Under this Article 20 Clause 2, prosecuted and punishment both are used, and or is not used. So therefore either the person has been prosecuted or is being punished, both will be covered under Article 20 Clause 2 and will be held to be double jeopardy. So for coming under Section 20 Clause 2, there are certain essentials which must be fulfilled. The very foremost one is same offence. So offence punished by law, dismissal is not a punishment. Offence must be punished by law and dismissal is not punishable. So punishment is one which is prescribed by the criminal law. And then it was held in S.K. Venkata versus Union of India that result of a departmental inquiry will not be covered under double jeopardy. Example, corruption case. So conduct rules inquiry will be dealt separately and won't be a part of double jeopardy. Further, we have that if no punishment is given, no double jeopardy. Jeopardy must have either prosecuted and punished. So they must both coexist. So it cannot be or, both must coexist. Further, appeal or revision is not considered to be double jeopardy because it is considered to be a part of it is considered to be the continuation of the offence, and that shall not be hit by Article 20 Clause 2. Further, offence must be same. So if the offence committed where the offence is different, no double jeopardy will apply. The charge was not framed before, added later, no double jeopardy will apply. And at the end, Section 300 of CRPC is a statutory provision of Article 20 Clause 2 of the Indian Constitution. Now moving to the third clause, which deals with self-incrimination, protection against self-incrimination. So the concept of self-incrimination has been taken by the Fifth Amendment of US Constitution. It applies only to the accused. So if a person is not accused, then Article 20 Clause 3 won't be applicable. Now, what is the meaning of self-incrimination? Self-incrimination means giving a statement against one's own self, and which can make him liable for punishment, which will make him liable for punishment. So further, Article 20 Clause 3 deals with the thing that the confession made or the statement given by the accused should not be compelled. So protection is against the compulsion for self-incrimination voluntarily is allowed. So not by the police only, by anybody. It was held in MP Sharma versus Satish Chandra that accused means against whom a formal acquisition has been put forward, that is FIR has been registered. Further, where he is not an accused, so there Article 20 Clause 3 will not apply. For example, in the case of Basudev versus State of Pepsu, village people gathered and they beat the person who has shot. So he confessed, no formal acquisition was there, therefore it was not hit by Article 20 Clause 3. Further, under no circumstances any of the confession given to police is not relevant, as it is stated under Section 25 and 26 of Indian Evidence Act. Further, this Article 20 Clause 3 deals with extrajudicial confessions and confessions made during trial. So Article 20 Clause 3 is the genesis, whereas Section 24 of Indian Evidence Act is species. And it is further held that Section 27 of Indian Evidence Act, which deals with discovery of facts, is not hit by Article 20 Clause 3 as it is given voluntarily. So in the same way, taking of blood samples, fingerprints, etc., it was held by Supreme Court in State of Bombay versus Kalikathu that it is not covered by self-incrimination. It is for the benefit of the accused. If it is not matched, then the accused can be declared to be innocent. will be proved innocent. So this is why test identification parade, blood samples are not covered under etc. are not covered under Article 20 Clause 3. So evidence procured by illegal means are also allowed and not hit by Article 20 Clause 1 until and unless it it has not been taken by compulsion. Similarly, tape recorded conversations are allowed under evidence and are not hit by Article 20 Clause 3. It was held in Salvi versus State of Karnataka that brain mapping, narco analysis, or psychological tests are also allowed and are not hit by Article 20 Clause 3 only if the person is voluntarily agreeing to undergo these tests. But it was further held by the court that since under these tests a person is under the influence of some drug or under any electric impulse, therefore these confessions are hit by Article 20 Clause 3 and they are not voluntary in true sense. So where the accused himself consents for the test, there they are not barred by Article 20 Clause 3, as I have already told earlier. So it merely raises a presumption under section 114 of Indian Evidence Act in favor of the accused if the confessions or the test results are in favor of the accused. So only those tests are disallowed where I blatantly say that I have done the offence. So only that is not covered in that is hit by Article 20 Clause 3. So this was all about Article 20. Thank you.